Welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC Rich, and I'm joined by my guests, Sarah Richardson and Marissa Kelly of Magpie Games. Hey Sarah and Marissa, welcome to the show.
Hey Rich.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Now notice we have two guests, both returning guests. This is like a double dip of cool newness. I'm so excited to have both of you on to talk about Bluebeard's Bride.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I already know your gateway games, and if you don't know, you should totally go back and check out Velvet Glove episode and Apillion, because they're both fantastic. Let's go over here and read a Sitch. Read a Sitch. Okay, Sarah, Marissa, I got a question for you because I've seen this happen a few times when I've been running PBTA games recently. I want to pick your brain about this. As an MC, how do you handle it when players, a lot of times they'll come in, they already know the game, right? They've played this game before, and so they want to kind of jump past the idea of the fiction and just angle for a move, or they'll use their fiction to directly try to tie into a move. They want to pick up those dice as soon as possible because they see it on their sheet or they see it in the basic moves, and they're just itching to fire that thing. Or, you know, it's the highlighted stat, so they want to get that XP. How do you try to tease out of them to kind of bring it back to how the game's supposed to function?
It kind of depends on the game a little bit, but most of the time you'll see a player pointing at a specific move, and that's what you want them to do. But the main thing that I ask them to do is I try and push it further into the fiction. So, for example, if they're like, well, I'm going to go aggro on him. It's like, okay, that's nice, but how are you doing that? Explain to me in exacting detail exactly what it is you're going to do. Are you picking up the nearby shotgun? Or have you, do you have a wrench hidden in your pants that you're going to whip out and smack somebody with?
Once they do that, do you almost always let them, in this example, go aggro? Or based on how they describe it, do you ever tweak the move?
I'm interested in what Marissa has to say, but I know that for me, making them clarify exactly what they are doing sometimes tells both me and the player that the move they thought they wanted to trigger isn't exactly what they're trying to do. That will come up a little bit in like Velvet Glove, for example, where somebody really, really thinks that they're using the goods, but it turns out they're actually trying to tell a man to cool it instead. So by making the player verbalize what it is that they see their character doing, that kind of pushes them to figure out exactly what they're trying to do. And sometimes it's not what they think it is.
Cool. Marissa, what about you? What do you do to try to fix this?
I try and head things off quite a bit, especially when I'm playing with people who are new to that sort of way of role-playing. So before we start, I say, here are your moves. Don't worry too much about them. If you trigger them, I'll let you know. If you see someone triggering them and no one's saying anything, feel free to speak up. And we probably just missed it. And like Sarah said, I go ahead and ask them how they're doing a thing, and that totally seems to work. And like Sarah also alluded to, I give them examples. So I sort of model what that would look like if they seem to be having trouble. Like she said, if you pick up a shotgun, are you demanding something? What do you actually want out of this scene? And I guess thirdly, you just kind of let them do that because they're trying to play the game, and by modeling for them and sort of explaining how much easier it can be than just naming the move, they'll eventually probably fall into a rhythm with you. And if they're not getting it, maybe on a break or something, y'all can talk that out and dive into what maybe they're missing.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you both so much. Why don't we open our brains to this game that you're here for, the Bluebeard's Bride. Open your brain. Okay, Bluebeard's Bride is currently on Kickstarter at the time that we're putting out this episode. It's about to finish up. It's been a really strong overall Kickstarter campaign. What is Bluebeard's Bride? What's the setting? What's it about?
Bluebeard's Bride is a Powered by the Apocalypse world game that is based on the Bluebeard fairy tale. Now, it was designed by myself and Marissa and Whitney Beltran. And in the original fairy tale, which I'll tell you guys in a minute, there's a really bad guy who has a bit of a wife problem. And so in the game, you play the wife. You are the bride. And what makes Bluebeard's Bride a little unique, although there are other games that do this, is all of the players take a part of the bride's mind or her personality, and that is your playbook.
Okay.
And then you all play together as one person investigating this house. I should also mention this game is a horror game. So it kind of dives into what we're terming feminine horror. So a lot of the horror is based on feminine experience, because in this game you do play a woman in a very scary house.
Why am I playing it? I'm not a woman. I'm not sure if you saw the beard.
I've also never been an elf before or a dwarf, but we all get over the hump somehow.
Contrary to what some people think, I have never been a barbarian.
Citation needed.
What are the mechanics that you've used here that are different from like vanilla Apocalypse World to try to bring this crazy horror, feminine wildness to light? What is it that is different in the mechanics here?
Well, like all the games that we're making, we're trying to look at Apocalypse World as a way to approach games rather than a core rule set. So we changed all of them. Yay! But some of the ones that I think are particularly unique that people might be surprised to see would be that you're playing one character, one single antagonist among all of the players. So you're each playing an aspect of the bride's psyche and showing how complicated one person can be in a world that is trying to reduce her down to something that is less than complex. And we're also taking away some of the dice. Basically, we've limited uses of die rolls in this game to basically only things that are definitely variable and things that you're going to be doing a lot of, like investigating, because you're investigating what happened to who and why in all of these different rooms. Those outcomes should be fairly regular. So we have a way of making that interesting, but without rolling dice. So it doesn't slow down the build that you're coming to and put a pause on things that aren't ultimately surprising when they happen. And that also sort of helps nod to some of the ghost stories that I'm sure inspired the three of us when making the game. So that's also sort of a fun little addition.
I have a question though. If I'm not rolling dice, how do I get XP?
Well.
Oh, Rich.
Luckily, this is a one-shot, so all your XP is fan mail at the end, we'll say.
I can't make like a 5th level bride. I can't
level
escape to safety.
You can do those things, but at the end of the game, and it is all up to you and the other players there how you end this fairy tale. So, good luck.
All right. What is your favorite move of the moves? You've changed them all. So now you've got a huge amount of things to look at. But as is standard, this one's coming. What's your favorite move and why? And I'd love it if you each have a different answer so then you can argue, because I've never had that happen on +1 forward. So, Marissa, what's your favorite move and why?
Well, a lot of our moves are obviously inspired by current existing moves, but one of my absolute favorite is Shiver From Fear. When you shiver from fear, you name a thing that you're most afraid will happen, and the GM will tell you how it's worse than you feared. Keep the ring and choose 2, or pass the ring and choose 1. It infects the bride with its perversions. It has the bride in its clutches right now, or it speaks to you. Take 1 trauma, just you, sister. So I really like this move because it asks the players what they're afraid of and lets it be realized all in one swoop. You look creeped out, or you say, oh, hell no, when something happens. And I get to directly ask you, what are you afraid of right now? And you have to tell me, and then I get to tell you how it's worse. And that's always fun.
So I need to say a splinter. Right? That's
cheating, Rich.
It's totally cheating.
But I will say, if you do try and cheat, I will best you and still make it worse than you feared. That splinter will be more than a thorn in your side by the time I'm done with it.
Oh, man. I'm already dreading acting under fire now. Sarah.
Yes.
What about you? What's your favorite move and why? Or one of, if she took your favorite move.
Yeah, I mean, I do really love Shiver From Fear. It is a lot of fun. But I also really enjoy Caress a Horror.
Civil War.
Civil War! Whenever you caress a horror, you roll plus blood. On a hit, the horror is swayed by your stroke. Direct what was intended for you to another victim in the house. On a 7 to 9, it will shift its attention, but only if you participate in some way. And the most fucked up things have come about in the game because of this move. And, you know, it speaks to how women are sometimes asked to be complicit in terrible things, or people are. Just people, whenever they're asked to participate in something horrific, watching that struggle as they decide whether or not to go along with it or whether to rebel. Yeah, that I really enjoy that.
Wow. That's a crazy move.
Did we mention this game was creepy? Did we mention that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say, usually I'm really excited to play a game by the time we finish up opening our brain to it, but let's go ahead and act under fire and play Bluebeard's Bride for a little bit, okay?
You mean you're really, really excited now, right? That's what you meant?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Really, really excited for this terrifying game. Okay, let's do this thing. It is time to act under fire.
Well, the way all games of Bluebeard's Bride starts out is I tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a poor young girl who was very beautiful, and she lived in a very small village with her mother and her brother. Life was kind of hard for them, but she could get by. It wasn't terrible. Until one day, a nobleman came to town looking for a bride. And all of the well-off families took their daughters to meet this man. And whenever they came back, none of them were engaged. And they had stories to tell of this man, of how he had been married before, and no one knew what had happened to his wives, of how he was very rich, but also he was very ugly, and his beard was blue. But whenever the girl was walking through the village one day, the man saw her, and he said, "That girl will be my bride." He went to her mother, and he told her that he would take care of their family if he could have their child as his wife. And the mother thought it over, and she went and talked to her daughter and asked, "What do you want to do?" And the girl looked at her mother's thin, overworked face and thought, perhaps this man is not that ugly. Perhaps his beard is not that blue. So she agreed to marry him. And they had a beautiful wedding with all of her family and friends. And then she got into a coach and he took her to his house. And once they got there, the man told her that he had to go away on business. And she should make herself at home, look through every room, open every door, except for the one room, his study. And he gave her the key to that room and said, "Don't go in there. I'm trusting you." And then he went away on business. And the girl went through every room, and she looked at all the fine clothes, all the jewels, all the beautiful things that were now hers. But still she wondered, what could be in that room? What could he be keeping from her? After all, were they not married? So finally, one day, her curiosity got the better of her, and she could stand it no longer. She walked up the stairs to that room, and she opened the door. Inside were the bodies of all of his former wives. And as she gasped in horror, she dropped the key, and it fell in a pool of blood. Now the girl closed the door, thinking to herself she would never let him know she had seen his secret. And she tried to clean the key, but the blood had stained it. So when Bluebeard came home the next morning, he asked to see the key. At first she hid it, but he saw that key was missing, and he asked her to bring it to him. Whenever he saw the blood-stained key, he knew she had been in that room. So, in some versions of the fairy tale, this is the point when her mother or her brother shows up and saves her. Sometimes, in modern retellings, she even gets to save herself. But in the original version, Bluebeard drug her into that room, and he cut off her head. Because this was a fairy tale that was used as a lesson, a warning to women that they should obey their husbands. Now, the game you're about to play is a little bit different, because we're still not sure if Bluebeard actually has a room full of dead wives, or if that's just a terrible story going on about him. So now you two are going to be playing the bride tonight, and you're going to write your own ending to this fairy tale. Why don't we hear who's going to be playing? Marissa, do you want to start with your playbook?
Yes, I'm going to be the fatale tonight. You drip sensuality from your lips. Others watch your every move and crave for you to take control. The bride's lips are pursed and thin and pale. Others keep her quiet by reminding her of her station in life, where she came from.
Excellent. And Rich, why don't you tell us who you're playing?
I'm going to be playing the Virgin. You see beauty where there is none. Others seek comfort in your warmth and delight in your obedience.
And could you tell us what the bride's eyes look like?
Our eyes look warm and caring, but there is a hint of tiredness that we try to hide.
And how do others know that you want them when they gaze into your eyes?
Because I stare openly at them, and I hold their gaze and try to show them that they are important.
Very excellent. Now, both of you, whenever you prepared for your wedding, you gave your new husband a gift. Tell me, Fatale, what gift did you present to Bluebeard before the wedding, and why did you choose this?
I gave him my favorite book. It was a biography on a famous painter. Her name is Artemisa Gentileschi, and she was a badass rebel woman who I looked up to very much, and this biography has always been important to me as I went through my life, dabbling in painting whenever possible, whenever my family scrounged up enough funds to get us any supplies.
Excellent. And Virgin, what gift did you give your husband?
With our meager painting supplies, there were not many times I could put anything on canvas. Once I painted a dove, and I originally chose it because it was white, so I could use very little ink, but as I did, it was precious to me, and many of our friends said that it was my best work, and so I gave to Bluebeard the finest thing that I had ever made. Though I didn't tell him that. That's far too prideful.
Oh, so you did not explicitly tell him that?
I hoped that he would understand it when I gave it to him.
Excellent. Now, you both have stats and one of those is already filled out for you. You have blood, which is your connection to the horrific, carnality, which is your expression against the horrific, and resilience, which is your ability to tolerate the horrific. So the two that are not filled in, you'll give one a 0 and one a -1. And then we have some sisterly bonds for you to fill out. Virgin, do you want to go ahead and tell us your sisterly bond?
The fatale blackens my innocence with her every word. She became my enemy when she lied to our father.
What did she lie about?
She told him that we wanted to be married to Bluebeard.
Now, Virgin, is it that you don't wish to marry Bluebeard himself, or are you just adverse to all men?
I'm not averse to all men.
So it is just this one man that you do not wish to marry.
Truth be told, yes.
Okay. Fatale, what is your sisterly bond?
The Virgin has no idea of a woman's true power. I wish to teach her this power because I believe she's full of potential. She sees beauty where others cannot, and she can bring that to more people if she truly understood the ways of the world.
Excellent. Now, just as a note, that trauma is mental as well as physical in this game. And the sister that provokes the trauma can choose to take it alone, but if you don't, then you'll share that trauma with your sister. You'll still take the same amount of trauma, but it's whether or not you want them to hurt as well. And whenever a trauma track fills, that sister shatters. Now, the sister who gave the gift that Bluebeard likes the best gets to start out with the ring. And the ring is how we determine who's in control of the physical body. So in this case, Virgin, he did like your gift the best.
Yay!
So you will start out with the ring. Now, you just went through your wedding day. You had a beautiful dress. You had a beautiful ceremony. And Bluebeard was attentive through all of this. But now you're in his house. Whenever you exited the carriage and you looked at it, you had never seen such a fine mansion. But there was a storm rolling in, and it's getting dark. You saw the faintest flickers of lightning as you walked up the stairs. And now Bluebeard swept you up in his arms and carried you over the threshold before depositing you in the entryway. This entryway stretches up 2 stories, and in front of you, it fades away into darkness. Bluebeard walks over to a table and picks up a letter and reads it. As you stand there in your wedding dress and your nicest shoes, before he turns to you. My dear, you know I have been looking forward to tonight for a long time. But unfortunately, urgent business calls me away. Here are the keys to the house. Look through every room, open every door, except for my study. And he shows you the key. This is my private space, and I ask that you respect that. But otherwise, make yourself at home, and I will be back as soon as I can. And with that, Bluebeard leaves, closing the door behind him, and you are alone in his house. Now, there are many doors in this entryway. And as you stand there in your tight shoes and your tight dress, one of those keys catches your eye. Tell me, Virgin, what does that key look like?
The key looks ornate. On the end of the key, it looks like a butterfly.
And is this key heavy or light?
It's heavy. I wouldn't know for sure, but it feels a little soft. Perhaps it's golden.
Excellent. You look up, and in front of you is a door where the handle matches that key. It has that same golden color, and it feels a little soft. You put the key in the lock, you turn the key, you open the door, and you go inside. The door closes behind you. You are now in a room and cannot leave until you make an exit move. The first thing you notice about this room is the smell of roasting meat and herbs. It reminds you a little bit of your mother's kitchen. There's this bitter scent underneath it, kind of like the turpentine you use to clean your brushes. There is a red glow that fills the room from the fire in the hearth. This fireplace across from you takes up most of one wall. It's almost big enough to walk into. There is a large fire. Over it is a cauldron that is definitely bubbling full of something. There is a compartment in the fireplace that lets you bake, and that compartment's closed, but you can see a little bit of smoke coming out of it. In front of you is a butcher's block table with several large knives stuck into it, and you think there might be something on the table, you're not sure what it is. The whole room is kind of dark, and everywhere you look, it looks like there's this residue of smoke on every surface, but it is definitely a kitchen.
Well, I have the ring, so I would like to walk over to the butcher's block.
As you get closer, you make out that there is a little lump of some kind of meat and a smear of blood covering the surface. In order to find out more about this, you could investigate it.
I would love to investigate that.
Excellent. What is your first question?
I would like to know, what about this item is odd or uncanny?
So you lean a little closer to the butcher's block because it's so dim in here, it's kind of hard to see everything clearly. And you can see that somebody has taken a big knife and kind of minced up some of this meat really finely, like they're going to make it into a sausage or something. And mixed up in the meat are shreds of paper. And as you lean closer, you see that it's all kind of moving up and then down a little in rhythm, as if the smear of meat. It is so good you don't have the ring right now, Marissa.
Nope.
So it's breathing. What's your next question?
Well, let's go. Let's see what memories this item holds.
There's a knife on the butcher's block. So you pick it up and you kind of push at the bits of meat to try and see what's on the paper. And as you push at the little bits of moving meat, there's this little sigh, as if it's releasing the air inside. But you can see that the little pieces of paper, it looks like a very finely drawn portrait. It could maybe be you, or it might just be a woman who looks a lot like you. It's really hard to tell since it's been cut into pieces.
I think I'd like to take stock of this tense situation.
Are you sure it's tense? Are you sure?
I feel threatened.
Yeah.
Please ask a good question.
Yes. When I take stock of a tense situation, I get to ask one. What does this place demand of the bride?
So you put the knife down and you back away from that slightly moving mass of meat.
Yes, I do.
And paper. And as you back away, you hear a little clatter behind you, and you almost bump into the woman behind you. as she puts out her hand and steadies you and says, "Oh, be careful, child. We don't want you to get hurt in here." And you turn and you can see it's a young woman about your age standing there. She is heavily pregnant. Her belly strains her dress, as do her breasts. And she just is smiling and patting your shoulder. But you can see that she's not looking at your face. She's looking at your belly. You two doing okay there?
Yeah, it's all you, Rich. Let's see what the Virgin has to feel about this. Where's the beauty?
Yeah. Hello. I'm sorry. I didn't know there was anyone else in the home.
And she smiles and nods, and while you're talking, she kind of like pinches your shoulder a little bit, and then she kind of pats your hip. I mean, it's very, she's all but checking your teeth. I'm just the cook, dear girl. Don't worry, you must be the new bride.
Yes.
Are you going to let her do this to us, Virgin? We're the new ladies of the house.
But she's pregnant. And she already works here.
Doesn't mean she should touch us.
She reaches out and she puts a hand and squeezes your breast.
That's quite all right. Thank you. What are you cooking? What is this?
And she still has her hand on your breast, but she's like, "Oh, it's something very nourishing. It's very good for, And she gestures at her belly. "I mean, you seem like you're ripe. You must be in your fertile time."
Perhaps I am, and I will gently take her by the wrist and remove her hand from my breast.
So I assume you're not trying to hurt her.
No, she's just a little odd.
I just want to bring up, if you would like, you could be caressing a whore, which would mean that you are trying to, whatever she's intending to do to you, you're going to try and get her not to do it. Or you can wait, because it can get worse, and I would like that. So it's up to you.
I would like for her to stop. So.
Okay. So you took her wrist, so you're kind of touching her. It sounds like you're touching her in a firm manner, but you're not trying to hurt her.
Correct.
So just, if you extend that touch just a little up her forearm, that could be a caress. And then you would roll plus blood. And you could see if you could stop pregnant lady from whatever it is she's intending on doing to you.
Okay. My blood is a -1. And that means that I've rolled a 6.
Of course we did.
Excellent. Let's see. She does take her hand from your breast. Although then she slips that arm around you and guides you to the fire. She takes a spoonful of that bubbling mass over the fire and holds it up to your lips. She blows on it to make sure it's not too hot, and then she says, "Here, tell me, is this spiced enough for you?" And then she tips it into your mouth.
Can I investigate this as it's... Or is it too late?
Well, that's a good question. It's already in your mouth, so you can investigate it while you're swallowing.
I'm down with that. Are you good with that, Rich?
Yeah, let's... Might as well, it's already in our mouth.
Yes.
What's your first question?
Whose soup is this?
Why would you ask me such a wonderful question? Once it's on your tongue, you start to kind of recognize some of the flavors. There's a little bit of thyme, and there's a little bit of salt. There's a little bit of this meaty flavor. You go to swallow, you can't swallow yet. You realize there are chunks of meat in it, so you have to crunch down, and when you crunch down, you feel these tiny, thin bones splinter. And you stop for a minute because that pierces your tongue, and now the taste of the soup is mixed with your own blood. And you look at her, and she's smiling at you, and you can see that her mouth is bloody too. And she's like, I think leaving the bones in gives it a little bit of a punch. What's your next question?
Well, I have the utmost faith in Bluebeard, so why did Bluebeard keep this?
So you find yourself chewing despite the bones and swallowing, and you can feel your own blood kind of running down your lips. And she kind of pats you on the back and says, "It's okay, dear. You'll get used to the taste. This is all you have to eat now. And he will just make sure you have plenty of meat for the pot." And as she says that, you see her belly kind of ripple. And she reaches out and she tightens her grip on your shoulder. And then you smell blood and you can see it running down her legs. And she's like hanging on to you, and she's like, "I'd say it gets easier, but it really doesn't."
I need to get away from her immediately.
Now, at any point, if you want, you can give up the ring. Technically, since you rolled Caress of Horror, you should give up the ring.
Oh, yay.
Go ahead.
So you want to run away from this woman who's clearly suffering, is the word I might use.
Sure.
Yes, I would like to get away from her. Like, she's grabbing me, she's bleeding, she's making me eat bones.
You make her sound so unpleasant.
I think we might be feeling a little inadequate. I'm ill-equipped for this moment. So I believe I'm going to call out for a different servant of Bluebeard, because clearly he wouldn't want this for us. And that this woman is twisted.
Clearly.
I'm going to back away from her as much as possible, even if she stumbles a little bit, without hopefully letting her fall to the ground. And I'm going to yell out for a house servant, saying, "Help me. She seems hurt. I need somebody to take care of this. I can't do this on my own."
Okay. Go ahead and roll plus resilience, and we'll see if you get a different servant or not.
Resilience is my -1. So that's a 7. Yeah!
All right.
Excellent. So she's managed to catch herself on the edge of the table. And she's kind of shaking her head at you. But you hear the door open. And an older woman comes in. She's carrying a candle. And she's kind of heavy set. But she's wearing a plain dress with an apron. And she looks at the two of you and seems very confused. "I assume you're the new bride, but what are you doing here?"
I was told I could roam freely wherever I liked. But can you please help? This woman needs help. I try and sort of prop her up.
The older woman sets the candle down and says, "Oh, she's fine. She's given birth before. But you say are you the new bride?"
Yes, of course. I gesture at my wedding dress.
Oh, okay. But you're saying our master said you could roam the house. Did he not give you any rules?
He didn't need to give me any rules because I serve him just as you do, but in my own way.
She doesn't look like she likes that very much, but she picks up a dishcloth from the table and drops it in front of the other woman and says, "Clean up your mess."
You happy now, virgin?
No, but thanks.
So the older woman is ignoring the pregnant lady. who has now dropped down to both of her knees, and there's more blood coming out from between her legs. And she's starting to pant and make these kind of like high-pitched noises. They're kind of like whimpers. But the older woman is just kind of walking around, and she just like, "Come here, lady, sit down," and ushers you to a seat and starts bustling around. And she gets a big bowl of that soup and sets it in front of you.
Well, Virgin, I believe you have the ring now, but perhaps we should, while things are happening, take a look around.
I mean, the pregnant lady is still, she's just making these terrible noises.
I want to help her.
I don't. Let's see what's in the... You said there was a kind of oven in the fireplace?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it's very hot. Would there be something I could use to open it?
Oh, yes. There are pot holders. You can... actually, if you want to investigate that, the older servant will help because she is taking the pot out of that part of the fireplace, scolding the younger woman for almost letting it burn before the new mistress could have some. But what's your first question?
What about this item is odd or uncanny?
So she sets it down in front of you, and it's steaming. It's a pie. And you realize this is the savory smell that you had smelled when you first walked in the room. It's got this nice little like handmade lattice on the top, so you can see the little bubbling filling in between the spaces, and you can see that there are white feathers sticking out, and you can see a little lump that's kind of, as you look closer, you can see it's the shape of a beak, and you can see more bones sticking out of the pie.
Why did Bluebeard keep this?
The older lady, she cuts a piece and she puts it in front of you. And she says, "Here, dear, this is his favorite dish. Why don't you have some of that, and I'll help this one over here clean up her mess." And
what is this? What is this dish?
"Oh, it's pie, dear." And then she gestures at the woman on the floor. And there's this splash of blood. And then something falls out from underneath the lady's dress, and it's moving, and you can see white feathers and a beak.
I think I should probably take stock.
So, just to be clear, it appears that the pregnant lady just gave birth to some sort of bird baby.
Right.
In case that wasn't clear. The older lady is gesturing at the pie. And you can definitely see that there is a resemblance between what is in the pie and what is on the floor. And the pregnant lady isn't looking so good. Now, if you'd like to take stock of what is definitely a tense situation, which question would you like to ask?
What horror here is hidden from the bride?
I like that. As you look down at the pie, and you look at the soup, and then you look back at the poor pregnant lady on the ground, you feel this shift in your belly. It's like this weight. And you look down and you realize that your beautiful wedding dress that you got laced into this morning, and it fit your slim figure perfectly like a glove, now it's straining over your belly. As your belly, you can see it moving out. You can see it growing. And you feel something move inside.
Fatal, I don't know what to do.
Give me the ring.
What will you do?
I'll do what you don't want to do.
Okay. I give her the ring.
Please bear in mind that means that you're also protected from trauma right now. At least until she passes it again.
Okay.
What you want to do, Fatal?
I am going to caress a horror in my belly. I think we sort of feel the strain of the ivory bone from the corset in our dress. And I'm going to go over to the butcher's block and take the knife and undo the threads because I couldn't get out of this on our own.
That's right. And so you see your belly kind of pop out from the fabric, and your belly button has popped out, and your belly is just swelling in front of you.
I'm going to slide down the counter, so we're sort of sitting with our knees up high, and I'm going to rub my stomach and hum a lullaby that we know, and I'm going to take the other end of the knife and I'm going to push in different parts of my stomach to try and move whatever it is as far as I can. And we'll see if it's swayed by my stroke, I suppose.
Indeed. Please go ahead and roll.
This is my +1.
Oh, look at that.
11.
Wow.
Damn.
Nice.
All right. So you kind of push at it and you feel whatever it is that's inside your belly. It kind of shivers back in time with your humming.
Yeah, I'm going to reassure the Virgin and myself that the old woman said that she's done this before. We've seen it happen. This doesn't have to be our burden.
That's right. You watch your stomach start to go down, and you feel it lighten. And you hear the young woman behind you, and she says, "No, not again. No." What do you do?
I would actually like to care for her.
So you drag yourself back up, and now your dress is hanging open, but your stomach is flat. And you don't feel anything inside moving around. But when you look over that butcher block, you can see the woman with blood still streaking her thighs. She's laying on her back, propped up by her elbows, and her belly is big and round again, and she's crying.
I think I'm going to move us behind her and move her wet hair out of her forehead, and I'll hum the lullaby to her.
Very nice, very nice. Yes, she actually, her tears start to dry, and she leans back against you. The old woman standing in the corner watching you too. She's eating a piece of pie.
And Virgin, you have the ring.
Yeah.
I think I understand this room.
You'd like to propose a truth?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, what do you think happened to whom and why?
I think that the young woman was impregnated by Bluebeard, and I think that the work he forced her to perform killed her baby.
It sounds like you're going to take a token of disloyalty because it sounds like you feel Bluebeard is at fault.
Yes.
Okay, what token would you like to take with you from this room? There are many things laying around that you can take.
I think that knife that we used to soothe the beast to go away, perhaps we could take that.
So you pick up the knife and you realize that it's actually quite dull, but you can tie that into the shreds of your wedding dress. And so you smooth the hair off the woman's brow, and she thanks you. And the older woman sets down her plate and helps you up and says, "Don't worry, dear. I'll take care of her." She takes you to the door, pushes you through. The door closes behind you, and you hear it lock again.
Okay.
Are you okay, Rich?
Yeah. So that's a whole room.
That was a whole room. Yes.
All right.
That's just an example of how the game can play out. Normally you play between anywhere from 3 to 6 rooms, depending on the length of the game and players and everything. But yeah, that was a pretty full room.
Sarah, Marissa, I really appreciate both of you making time to come on +1 Forward. Thank you so much for showing me Bluebeard's Bride.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, thank you so much for playing along with that. That was awesome.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community and Richard Rogers. You can find us on gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at GauntletRPG. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and McGay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Arl Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko Metal version and Process. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Arl Hotbed on their website, savagearlhotbed.com.